We've been suspicious of the Walt Disney Company ever since Josh D'Amaro got on stage at D23 and announced a big Cars expansion coming to Walt Disney World. Our question was, where is it going to go? And then finally, they admitted that they were going to be destroying Tom Sawyer Island and the rivers of America in order to make way for a land that says ka-chow. Well, now it seems that the state of Florida, through the organization SwiftMud, otherwise known as the South Florida Water Management District, has said that Disney needs to submit environmental impact paperwork. Well, the deadline is almost here, and Disney has yet to respond. CFTOD, that is the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District under Ron DeSantis, has intervened on behalf of the Disney company to request more time, and it sounds like Disney has only 1 month more, actually less now, to respond. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Disney World is trying to destroy the rivers of America, and SwiftMud is currently standing in the way. What is SwiftMud? That is the South Florida Water Management District. And they have been they have been telling Disney that they need to hold up because the destruction of rivers of America will have an ecological impact on the rivers of America, which, by the way, flow into the Seven Seas Lagoon. And despite the fact that these are man-made lagoons and man-made rivers, rivers of America needing to be closed off and sealed every few years, not like Seven Seas Lagoon does that. These are active ecological habitats there in the middle of this Florida theme park. So you have to have an environmental impact study or something of that equivalence for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. Well, SwiftMud asked for more information from the Disney company, or they were going to deny their permit request. You know, the permit request for the work that Josh D'Amaro said that dirt was already moving on, and then later on said, oh, shovels are about ready to break ground. There's a little bit of a timeline question there. Well, that timeline is now 1 month out. It looks like Disney World has been granted a 1 month deadline extension for the Rivers of America demolition permit. I hope they fail, to go back to a famous statement from the early 2000s. Walt Disney World has been granted an extension that it requested to collect more required information for a permit related to the demolition of the Rivers of America and the first phase of construction for a Cars theme area of Frontierland and the highly anticipated Villains Land. Well, we might disagree on that adjective there. The permit extension now expires on January 9th. So, it's actually 27 days as of the recording of this video, 2025 instead of today. The state of Florida's South Florida Water Management District has said that a second extension will not be granted and that all required information must be submitted by the January 2025 deadline. Bad news to the Imagineers who would like to relax with their families over the Christmas break here. Interesting to state that this actually was not it's CFTOD who stood in the balance here and said, hey, I think you need to give Disney an extension. I'm oversimplifying what was an official process here, but the thing that many people, when they want to try to paint the state of Florida in a bad light, would try to describe it as the Ron DeSantis appointed board says XYZ. Here, the CFTOD, the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District that replaced the Reedy Creek Improvement District, those are the people that are actually trying to help Disney in this case in order to get the Rivers of America demolition happening.
Right.
Gotta say, not my favorite thing that administration, if it was actually just a puppet of Ron DeSantis, not my favorite thing that administration has done. What I'm actually saying is CFTOD is independent.
Yes, and they're looking out for state interests, right? And for in terms of economic generation from this specific project, it's huge. So there is definitely an incentive to actually get this done. The thing here, though, is that, well, Disney wouldn't have had to do any of this, actually, if they had, maybe not commented on state affairs there like they did. We're only in this position because, well, they had the RCID stripped out from under them. And every single day it actually is encountered, and especially one expedited timeline like this, because remember, they asked for 60 days. They were only granted 30. Well, that's going to add on tens of thousands, perhaps even millions, to the cost of this project.
Victoria Alonso, this is the reason why she's not with the company anymore, because she cornered Bob Chapek in his office reportedly, and that's, wouldn't leave until he said that they would do something about these bills. And now all of a sudden, here we are.
Right. And well, Victoria Alonso, obviously a problem person when it comes to this. And we wonder, because Kevin Feige in his book was like, oh no, we're going to be having more diversity. We're going to be having more equity in all of our roles here. So Victoria Alonso, definitely a huge proponent. I think she was a little bit of a scapegoat when it came down to it. You know who I think is ultimately responsible? The guy who would be taking credit for it if it was all considered a good thing, and that is Bob Iger. Bob Iger famously on around January 7th of 2021 went in front of the whole company and said that all of the things that we consider to be political, they are no longer considered political. They're considered right and wrong. And even though what he was talking about was an election, he started talking about how important it was that he greenlit Black Panther. So he made it into a race thing somehow, the political situation in the United States, and said that the company needed to be political, even though Jeff Morrell, who was the head of communications for the company at the time, said, you know what we need to do, guys? We need to quiet the noise and stay out of political issues. He was fired. And then
Mm-hmm.
Bob Chapek was forced to do a hostage video saying, yes, we are not good allies for you, and I am sorry that I have ever said anything that you don't like. I don't want to make fun of Bob Chapek too much. I'm going to say the guy has suffered enough, and Bob Iger made his life a living disaster for a long period of time. Thankfully, he has tens of millions of dollars to wipe his tears with at this point. But
He
this
also looks like a human thumb.
go after him for that. He's a very large thumb, by the way, even though
Yeah.
Bob Iger is referred to
Oh,
as Big
a
Bob.
man's thumb, to be sure. A man's
Yes.
thumb.
A mannish thumb right there. Yes,
Yeah.
he is the rule of thumb. So for those of you who aren't fully understanding what we're saying here, that Bob Chapek statement ended up being noted by the Florida State Legislature, and Ron DeSantis said, "Hey, if you are going to come after the state of Florida and say that you're going to try to repeal the laws that have been passed by the duly elected representatives of the state of Florida, well, we now have the political will in order to get rid of the Reedy Creek Improvement District and any other districts that were established before 1967, coincidentally. So also the duly elected legislature of the state of Florida also voted to get rid of Reedy Creek. So it wasn't a Ron DeSantis thing. We've spent too much time on politics on this particular one here, but yes, this is a consequence of Disney not being able to keep their mouth shut. So the fact that this Rivers of America thing is being delayed is very much because Bob Iger created the company that he wanted to create there, even though he wasn't the CEO of the company at the time. I think that Disney is going to get their act together by January 9th and submit that information, even if it is incomplete or not satisfactory information. I think they're going to submit something in order to keep the bureaucracy moving here so that they can destroy this and replace it with something that says ka-chow over and over again.
This is one of the worst decisions that the Walt Disney Company has ever made, honestly, to replace the heart of Magic Kingdom in this way for a Cars attraction wouldn't have been the route that I would have gone. And I think there were ways in order to maintain the sanctity of this area while also adding to it and providing the route necessary to expand beyond Big Thunder, which, by the way, that was how this was all pitched back in the day, right? Originally, it was, well, we're going to have Coco, we're going to have Encanto, we're going to have all these things back there. Then that obviously changed. Now we're going to have Cars replace this section that you're seeing right here. And also, too, we're going to have Villains Land just beyond there. There were ways to facilitate this and have your cake, eat it, too. And I just saw a picture actually recently. I was trying to load it up on Twitter, but the Liberty Bell was full of people wanting to ride it. So this idea that they couldn't have made it relevant or that this has dropped off in terms of some kind of popularity. Again, we hear these these excuses, I should say, for Muppets, for example, and it just doesn't really hold water, so to speak, when you really look at what these things really mean to people.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is that Disney often likes to talk about, and Bob Iger likes to talk about, how they are a storytelling company. Well, if you're such great storytellers, then you can create stories that will make people interested in what you are doing in the parks, as opposed to the other way around, where you're being led around by your nose by whatever made the most money at the box office or what happens to be popular on streaming. it hasn't escaped our notice that a film that was made under the John Lasseter regime over there at Disney Animation is the film that's getting a sequel, as well as Frozen. The same problem that Bob Iger pointed out when he came into the company and as the CEO and said, I noticed that when we were looking, all of the characters that are popular were from 1997. Well, that's 1997 to 2005. That's about 8 years right there. Looking at what is popular now, we're looking at a more like a 10 to 11 year here for the Disney company at this point. So this is a company that has completely lost its way.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.